Hello and welcome to Odds on Serie A Matchday 21. We saw Inter Napoli draw. We saw Milan again dropping points. So it looks like this Serie A, Leo, is a little bit more nerazzurri, still with a fight, but Inter have the upper hand.
Yes, Edu, they do hold the distance with Napoli, with Milan, but to a point, I think that even for Napoli, it was good to leave San Siro with a point, not only because they were twice down in the scoreline, but even before the game, I think they would have signed it, or Conte would have done it, to sign a draw against Inter in San Siro. Everything is open, a lot of games still to play, but yes, the upper hand so far is with Inter.
Well, Conte was furious because
yeah, that for sure.
The penalty, so I'm not sure if he was happy or not with the result, but of course not with the penalty. Well, guys, we have match day 21, but also we are going to give you some tips for the games we have in midweek, Wednesday and Thursday, so stay tuned. Let's analyze everything in Serie A. Let's go on now with the show. And Leo, this Wednesday we have already two games, Napoli-Parma. You mentioned how Napoli were able to draw twice against Inter, the usual suspect McTominay scoring, so still a window open to keep fighting for the title, although remember they are favorites for this game, of course 1.35 to beat Parma, but they drew and dropped points against Verona in the last home game, and Parma getting points, getting wins against their direct rivals as they did against Lecce. That's why they have a good distance with the bottom three.
Yes, Edwin, and you mentioned, I will start with McTominay, the first name you mentioned, because it was a top performance from him in San Siro, kind of like a footballing droopy, right? He was absolutely everywhere. Just 3 misplaced passes all night in San Siro, 3 shots on target, 2 of them were goal, 4 interceptions, 4 clearances. Competing at this level for McTominay, Edu, he can be MVP of the season again. And if that happens, if McTominay wins the MVP of the season in 2 consecutive years in Italy, then we're going to have to think a lot to find a foreign player who had such an impact in Serie A in the last decade, maybe. And I said before, considering they were losing twice, Napoli happy to take the point, Edu. The title race still wide open. Let's not forget that McTominay even said on TV after the game, they have done it without Kevin De Bruyne, Sam Van Ginkel, Billy Gilmour, David Neres, who was the best player in November, December, also missed the last 2 matches. Lukaku haven't played a single minute all season. And this is why I think Napoli's tifosi, they should be very positive looking at the second half of the season. Napoli, for me, should forget about Champions League and focus on Serie A. They will play Champions League football next season anyway. That will open the gates for better players to keep landing. And if you win 3 titles in the last 4 seasons, you are talking then about a footballing dynasty in the making in Italy. We will see if they learn the lesson against Verona now with Parma, that arrives at the back of that huge win against Lecce away. Matteo Pellegrino, again the decisive player for Parma, scoring the second one. Last season, after arriving in January, he scored 3 goals in 13 games. This season, he has already 6 goals in 19 matches. So every week, the feeling is that he won't look out of place at Milan if he keeps scoring and playing this way. For Parma, Edu is 5 wins. 5 wins this season so far, which is a huge improvement on last season when they won 7 times in 38 matches. I can't see them getting the 6th win of the season at the Diego Armando Maradona, but my take here in this Napoli-Parma on Wednesday night, goals over 2.5, odds of 1.97.
And, well, Napoli favorite here, and what to say about Inter playing at home against Lecce. Lecce getting in trouble. They lost at home, so they are only 3 points away from Fiorentina. Lost to Parma, lost to Roma, only 1 point in the last 4. And, Leo, tell me about Inter, another big game without a win. Probably this is a little bit different. They were coming from 6 straight wins in Serie A since the defeat in the derby against Milan. Were they happy after the result?
Well, I agree with Di Marco. He said that 2 months ago, this game they would have lost. At least, even though this inability to win against direct rivals continues for 𝐿𝐴 and Inter, at least this time it was a point for them. And taking into account that Milan also drew their game, the distance haven't changed, I think they were happier than in other times not to win against a direct rival. But at the same time, Edu, last season in the title race with Napoli, the draws against Conte's side was very costly for Inter in the end. Also, let's not forget, it's already 14 games in all competitions without a win against Milan, against Juventus, and against Napoli. The last win against any of these 3 teams, it was in 2024. When Inter won against Milan and they secured the 20th 𝐻𝐿𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐜. So it's been 7 draws and 7 defeats against these direct rivals in all competitions for Inter. Something would need to change in that regard in the second half of the season. Of course, the biggest regret is that they were leading twice against Napoli. When 𝐵 scored the penalty, I remember she was doing this to his players, like think. And not even after 10 minutes, McTominay scored the equalizer for Napoli. In defense, on Sunday night, a player who was one of the best for them this season, it wasn't at his best. I'm talking about Manuel Akanji. He has become a cornerstone of Chibu's back three. In the pecking order, he's before 𝗵𝗵𝗏 or 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝗏𝗀, but on Sunday night he couldn't cope, or he looked a little bit exposed against 𝐿𝐴𝐨𝐵𝗏𝗀's pace. Lautaro in attack did not have many opportunities to score. He scored in 5 consecutive Serie A games, but now he dried up against Parma and against Napoli. So Julio Cruz still remains the last Inter player who scored in 7 consecutive games in Serie A, but that was in 2007. A period of rotation will start for 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝗏𝗀. I believe there is Lecce before Udinese, and then the Champions League returns also for Inter. This Lecce that couldn't hold the lead against Parma and lost a 6-pointer. With Fiorentina recovering ground, they could already fall into the red zone on the weekend if logic prevails and they don't take anything from San Siro. Actually, they're going to be in San Siro twice, with Inter and with Milan on Sunday. But also in Turin, there was no logic. They rescue a point. But for that to repeat, which I don't trust personally, Falcone, the goalkeeper, needs to have another performance of his life. My take here is Inter half-time, Inter full-time, odds of 1.57.
Indeed, they can stay in Milan since they have to play again at weekend at San Siro. Well, these are the games of the Super Cup, of the teams playing the Super Cup that were postponed. And on Thursday we have Verona Bologna. Bologna haven't won since the Super Cup. No wins since there. Actually, 7 winless games. They are now very far from European spots, and Verona, Leo, bottom of the table at the moment. Only 1 point in the last 4 games, and a funny thing was against Napoli.
Yes, absolutely. In a surprising performance, that one at the Diego Armando Maradona. And you are kind with Bologna, Edu, because you're saying the last win was in the Super Cup in Saudi, but it was in penalties. Against Inter in that semi-final. And yes, the problems continue for them because they are closer now to Atalanta in front of them, as closer to Torino behind them. And Torino's season is mediocre, to say the least. But within the bad times, they do some light. And that was the performance against Como, which at times was good. And only a goal from, another planet on added time was the reason why they dropped 2 points at the Lake. Bologna contributed a little bit to that with Niccolò Cambiaghi's red card, which left them under more pressure in the second half. a shame for 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐺𝐵 because he was the one actually opening the scoreline for Bologna. But as Italiano pointed after the game, they were partly back to their best. I don't think that, as well, some Bologna players were saying that also with Atalanta, there were already signs of improvement. I didn't see that, but with 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐺𝐵, I would say yes. Maybe, I don't know, they got a little bit complacent after the Super Cup, but the reality is 7 games in Serie A without a win. You need to add as well now 𝐬𝐭𝐵𝐵𝐺𝐵's injury. He's going to be the Colombian center back out for 1 month at least. At least they're going to have �𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐺𝐵𝗀, their first choice goalkeeper, who is back in training with the full squad. But I have to say that Rabaglia, who's been covering for him, he's been all right. And actually, well, in San Siro, he was, I remember, the MVP for Bologna in that defeat against Inter. Federico Bernardeschi is the one who's still out and won't return at least for this game. But for Bologna to make sure that those improvements with 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐺𝐵 are part of a bigger picture, they need to get back to the old self and get the 3 points against Verona. They lost 3 of the last 4, Verona. And as you mentioned, that one who they haven't lost was at the Diego Armando Maradona with the draw against Napoli. The fixtures haven't been very kind, I have to say, with Verona, because those in 3 of those 4 games they faced Napoli, Milan and Lazio. At home they lost 5 of the last 7 anyway. I think this one is an opportunity for Bologna. The odds are good. That's why my take here is Bologna to win, odds of 2.2.
Looking really bad. This Verona and a good game in the lake on Thursday. 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐺𝐵 Milan, our friend David, was very angry with Allegri. He says he's been so stingy, so defensive when Milan should go forward and beat Fiorentina and Genoa. They drop points in both games. Looks like they are getting a little bit now behind Inter. And 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐺𝐵, you mentioned the late draw against Bologna. Before that, 3 consecutive wins this season. They've been great. They are now in European spots. But against big teams, they are struggling. They usually lose.
Yes, Eduardo. But when we look at those defeats, Roma, Inter, those happened the way. At home, we can mention for 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐺𝐵 the win against Juventus, although that Juventus, it was under Tudor, it wasn't under the 𝐸𝐵𝐴𝐺𝐵𝐿𝐴𝐻 era. The win against Lazio, but all those wins were at the beginning of the season. So we have to see now what happened with Milan on Thursday night. For Milan, Edu, it was another step back for Allegri's team that draw with the Fiorentina, even if they rescue a point with 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐴𝐵𝐻𝐿𝐴 at the end of the game. Of course, the point looked different after they saw what happened in San Siro between Inter and Napoli, and nothing changed for them. But lately, the performances for Milan are not as good as before. I was talking in many other shows that Milan was like waking up in second half, and they were like very poor in first half, while in Firenze was the other way around. They played a very good first half. They had chances with Pulisic, with 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐺𝐵, good understanding, good combinations between 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵 and Pulisic on that first half. And then in the second half was mostly all about Fiorentina. Talking about 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐵, he just arrived and now he got injured again, because that was his story in West Ham, most of the time getting injured. So that's a shame for him and for Milan. Milan clearly missed Modric on last Sunday. Yashari was the one replacing him, but he was far from making a great match. Modric was rested. He was in the bench, but he didn't play a single minute. We will see if now with 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐺𝐵, is Modric returning, or if it's going to be Adrien Rabiot, who was also in the bench in this rotation for Allegri, the one who is going to be next to Samuel Ricci, who had a good game, and he played the 90 minutes in Firenze. 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐺𝐵 in that draw with Bologna at the very last second of the game, at least they managed to keep that unbeaten run at home. A wonder goal from Baturina, one of the best this season for sure, in a very entertaining game to watch. Nico Paz hit the woodwork in the second half. He was denied by Rabaglia in the first half. Jesus Rodriguez was again important for 𝐿𝐵𝐺𝐻 in attack. Before Bologna's goal, he made a solo run, and only his finishing let him a little bit down. A win on Thursday against Milan won't allow them to reach Roma's line, but that could provide them at least a gap of 6 points with Atalanta, who keeps growing on the table. On the road against top teams have been difficult for 𝐿𝐵𝐺𝐻, losing with Roma and then with Inter, who trashed them 4-0. But as I said, at home against Juventus and Lazio, they did well. The odds are good either way, but my take here, Edu, is both teams to score yes. Both teams to score yes, 1.82.
Our smart bet tool is going for double chance in this game, 1x. So 𝐿𝐵𝐻 not losing, they are the underdog.
Yeah.
For this game, difficult to trust Milan in the leg. Only one defeat this season for the Rossoneri. Well, this is match day 16, the postponed games because of the Super Cup. And now match day 21 on Friday, Pisa, Atalanta. Pisa is still in relegation, penultimate in the standings. They grab a draw in Udine. Remember, they are so poor at home. They are unable to score, only one goal at home this season. The opposite for Atalanta, in great form, 3 consecutive wins to nil. Last one against Torino, 5 wins and 1 defeat in this Serie A, and getting closer and closer to 𝐿𝐵𝐻.
Yes, they're the team in form right now in Serie A, 3 points away from 𝐿𝐵𝐻, although as I mentioned before, if 𝐿𝐵𝐻 wins against Milan, they're going to make that gap to 6 points. 5 wins in the last 6, 2 goals conceded in that run, and 4 out of those 5 wins were all 2-0 for Atalanta. Under Juric, they conceded 16 times in 15 games in all competitions. With Palladino, it's 8 goal conceded in 12 games in all competitions. The win against Torino was from start to finish. It was so good to see the 𝐿𝐵𝐻 scoring after 118 days. It became emotional as well at the end, with Mario Pasalic scoring the second one, because he lost his father before Christmas, and everyone was running to hug him after he scored the 2-0. There was probably just one moment of trouble all game, when 𝐿𝐵𝐻𝐷𝐻𝐿 Simeone broke the offside trap and went on 1v1 against 𝐻𝐿𝐵𝐻𝐿, but the Atalanta goalkeeper showed why he's one of the best ones in Serie A. Not too positive was that they lost another player to injury. This time was 𝗵𝐵𝐻𝐷𝐻, who had to be taken to hospital after the game. But all in all, I think that Atalanta's only regret is that they did not kill the game earlier against Torino. Hopefully for Palladino, once 𝐿𝐿𝐵𝐻 and Kozonu are back from AFCON, they're going to be more clinical in attack. The opportunity is there for Atalanta to keep adding wins before a crucial showdown with 𝐿𝐵𝐻 at the start of February, because they're going to have now Pisa. Then after Pisa is Parma for them. Pisa last weekend showed again that on the road they know how to score. It's incredible that they score 14 times away and just 1 at home. Their 2-2 with Udinese was their 5th 2-2 draw away in 7 matches on the road. At home is 4 consecutive defeats with 8 goals conceded. My take here, Edu, is Atalanta to win straight, 1.62. Those who want or prefer bigger odds, considering that Pisa cannot score, Atalanta to win 2-0 is 2.7, but I'm okay with the 1.62 with Atalanta to win.
Well, on Saturday, another game for Inter. You already analyzed Inter in the game against Parma. This should be more difficult in Udine. Remember, they lost against Udinese, Leo, in August. In the reverse fixture was a shocking win for Udinese. And Udinese drew with Pisa, as I said before, after winning in Torino.
Yeah, nothing has changed in the season with that point, with the 2-2 with the Pisa for Udinese. For them, it's clear it's impossible to create some level of consistency in their results. Winning against Napoli, to then be trashed in Firenze, to then lose at the Lake, and then win in Turin, and now the draw with the bottom team of the Serie A. At home, after that 1-0 win against Napoli, is 2 consecutive draws for Udinese. I won't go here for a double chance Udinese, even on these congested fixtures for Inter. Also, Udinese best player this season, Zaniolo. And I'm saying this despite Kenan Davis scoring 6 goals so far. For me, the best player is Nicola Zaniolo. He won't be available because the former Roman midfielder is having a minor knee injury. So that's why my take here is, for me, Inter to win, combined with goals under 3.5. Inter to win, goals under 3.5. These two together, odds of 2.
Well, and Napoli had a comfortable game on Wednesday against Parma, and this one should be kind of the same against Sassuolo, although, as we mentioned before, we have the past game against Verona as a warning.
Yeah.
Sassuolo, mid-table, lost to Roma and Juventus. They are now in bad form, the worst moment of the season for them, winless in the last 6.
Yeah, but the positive, Edu, for Sassuolo, and you guys remember that to have a look what happens between Napoli and Parma before looking at this Napoli Sassuolo. But the positive thing for them, Edu, is that the first half against Roma, they were good. They were very good, actually. They should have gone to half-time winning 1-0 at the very least, because they had like 3 or 4 very good chances in that first half at the Olimpico. Even Gasperini recognized that after the game, that yes, that Sassuolo did very good in the first half. They managed to keep the game 0-0 until the 75th minute of the game. But yes, the second half was a different story. Roma started to push a lot more, and Sassuolo barely crossed the halfway line. The red zone is still 9 points behind them, but they won just 1 of the last 9 and lost 3 of the last 5. My take here, Edu, is Napoli to score in both halves. Napoli to score in both halves, odds of 2.5.
And well, since we have Champions League next week, we also have Juventus playing on Saturday against Cagliari. Really comfortable win for this Juventus, growing and growing under Spalletti. 5-0 against Cremonese, 5 wins and 1 draw in the last games. Cagliari, 5 points away now from relegation, lost to Genoa. 3-0 is 1 point in the last 3 games. Leo, now we kind of can trust Juventus finally this season.
It seems, Edu. And on top of those 5 wins and a draw in the last 6, is 8 goals scored and none conceded in the last 2, which make you wonder what Buffon said last week, that Juventus would have been a Scudetto contender if Spalletti would have started the season, not Tudor. Or maybe they're still the title contenders. It's 4 points behind the leaders. It's not bad at all. Of course, anyway, Inter, Napoli, Milan, they have to play now in midweek before going into the weekend. After the 5-0 against Cremonese, Spalletti said that they are not at the level of Inter and Napoli. They all like to say this kind of thing. Spalletti, Conte, they all like, or they prefer to take some pressure away from his team. I think, but it sums up the spirit of the team that even when they were winning 5-0 against Cremonese, and Michele Di Gregorio had a great save at the end of the game against Alberto Grassi. Everyone celebrated like it was almost like the 6th goal. So it was important for them also to keep a clean sheet. Many high points in that win. Kalulu becoming highly popular as a right back. Bremer is slowly returning to his best level. McKennie, he keeps growing in every position, and he scored again against Cremonese. He should have scored a brace, but the third one was in the end an own goal when Cremonese tried to clear from the line his shot on goal. Miretti is making the attacking midfielder role next to Kenan Yıldız his, and he had a very good game again. Yıldız was unstoppable almost on every 1v1, and Jonathan David scored a second consecutive game, and he won a penalty as well. The game was over after 15 minutes when Juventus was leading already 2-0. And Cagliari now arriving after being trashed by Genoa should not offer great resistance to Juventus playing at this level, I believe. They are, as you said, 5 points from relegation zone, but with 2 defeats in the last 3. At home is 4 defeats in the last 7 for Cagliari. The last one with Milan, in which they played yes, a good first half, but could not maintain the intensity for 90 minutes. My take here, Edu, Juventus to win 2-0, to make it wins 2-0 for the third consecutive time. Juventus to win 2-0, odds of 2.4.
On the contrary, Leo, our smart bet is going for first team to score, Cagliari, in this game.
We'll see.
3.2, so it's impossible if the smart bet is right. So Juventus cannot have a clean sheet. Well, games on Sunday. Parma, Genoa, these teams fighting against relegation. We analyzed Parma playing in Napoli on Wednesday. Genoa had a very important win against Cagliari with the Rossi, of course, on the bench. 3-0 after the draws with Milan and Pisa. Breathing a little bit Genoa also to stay in Serie A. I think Pisa and Verona, Leo, are going to go down, and I would bet on Lecce. Look, at this point.
It could definitely be, Edu. I mean, you see the spirit in Genoa. Parma is doing well under Cuesta. Genoa is resembling his manager, at least in that fighting spirit. The Rossi, and it was a very good weekend for both. I spoke about Parma before, but just to add something more about their home form, for those looking into that, they show 4 defeats in the last 6. But against relegation struggling teams, they show a win with Fiorentina and a defeat with Lecce. However, with Atalanta, Milan, or 𝐿𝐭𝐵, they managed draws at least at the 𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐲. And Genoa had the best night of the season last weekend with that 3-0 win against Cagliari. The Rossi was exultant with the 3 points, but even more, Edu, with the clean sheet. Before Cagliari, Genoa have conceded in all 10 matches he has coached in all competitions, and in 6 of those matches they conceded at least twice. So it was very important not just to win but to keep a clean sheet. The win took them over Cagliari, and if they repeat the same at the 𝐬𝐭𝐴, they will leave Parma behind them too. The last 5 trips in Serie A for Genoa do not read bad at all. They won against Sassuolo and Udinese. They drew with Milan and Cagliari. Untasted defeat with Roma, the 𝐬𝐵𝐴, which was probably the worst game under De Rossi. Against Cagliari, Lorenzo Colombo scored for a 3rd consecutive game. For him to score, Lorenzo Colombo, for him to score or to assist any time against Parma, odds of 2.85. I will usually like to take the odds higher, but I will stay this time with double chance Genoa. I do double chance Genoa at the 𝐬𝐴, odds of 1.44.
It's curious, Leo, that is the first time I see the draw having a lower odds than the win of any team. So Parma to win pays 3, Genoa to win pays 3, and the draw is 2.88. So according to the bookies, is more likely the draw than any. I've never seen that, to be honest, after so many videos analyzing bets. So could be a good idea also going for the draw or double chance. As you mentioned, there is a lot of value on that. And then we have Bologna, Fiorentina. Let's talk about Fiorentina, still 3 points away from Lecce, but with some positives, right? Getting points and getting points even against tough teams like Milan and Lazio. I guess there is a change of mentality, and now they think they can turn the situation around.
Yeah, and for Bologna, you mean Edu?
For Fiorentina, I think that they can...
I'm sorry. Yes. Sorry. No, that's for sure. And they are fighting back. And to leave the relegation zone. And as I mentioned before, maybe this weekend you already have Fiorentina out of the red zone. Vanoli felt that they lost 2 points with Milan because Milan equalized on added time with 𝐿𝐭𝐴, but at the same time, and as I said with Milan, Fiorentina was lucky in the first half because Milan created very good chances in those first 45 minutes. But even Fiorentina, not that just it happened the 𝐿𝐭𝐴's goal on added time, but Fiorentina could have won it on added time as well with Bresciani in the 95th minutes. So it was quite eventful, those added times. best player for La Viola, no doubt, it was Pietro Comuso, the young center back. We will see for how long he will wear Fiorentina's colors. For La Viola, is 8 points collected from the last 15 in play. In the 5 games before this run, they took only 2 points. So there is, of course, improvement there. They could finish Matchday 21 out of the relegation zone if they win and Lecce loses in San Siro on Wednesday and in San Siro on Sunday. As we spoke before, it's 7 games without a win for Bologna. And yes, with Como, there were some positive signs, but their momentum is now with Fiorentina, which is crazy to say this. I wouldn't have said this probably 3 weeks ago. La Viola is about to land Jack Harrison from Leeds, who could be a good addition on the wing. The last time Bologna won at home, that was against Napoli. Since then, it's 3 defeats and 1 draw in 4 matches at home for them. And guys, remember to have a look what happens with Bologna and Verona. But my take here is Fiorentina double chance. Fiorentina double chance, 1.73.
And on Sunday, we have Torino-Roma. We saw this game also this week.
Yes.
On Tuesday in Coppa Italia, Torino won again at the Olimpico for the 2nd time this season. They also beat Roma away. Looks like they are only getting good results again, Roma this season. So another painful defeat for Gasperini. Leo, usually they are beating all these kind of teams in Serie A apart from Torino. I mean, they only lose the top teams except Torino that they lost again this season.
Yes, but after the game, he was saying that he's not very disappointed to be out of the Coppa Italia. Gasperini, there was actually, let's take it into account as well when we analyze that defeat with Torino, the one in Coppa Italia on Tuesday night, that Gasperini did not start 𝐷𝗵𝗏, did not start 𝐭𝐚𝐲, did not start Mancini, did not start 𝐿𝐵𝐾𝐿, who is back, and he's a starter as a centre back, did not start Mario Hermoso. It was Leon Bailey, the false 9 against Torino in Coppa Italia. It was anyway a dream night for Antonio Arena, 16 years old debutant for Roma, who scored with what it was his first touch as in professional football, and he also was close to making it 3-2 for them. With Sassuolo in Serie A and on the weekend, as I mentioned, the first half, yes, they got lucky not to be down at halftime, but the second half was all about Roma. Gasperini said that the icing on the cake would have seen 𝐷𝗵𝗏 scoring. His last goal in Serie A was actually against Sassuolo, but in the reverse fixture. But 𝐷𝗵𝗏 was very active and he was involved in most of Roma's best attacking moves. Matías Soler had a goal and assist for Manu Kone's goal. The problem again with Roma is strikers. Dobbik got injured 2 match days ago. Now is the turn of Ivan Ferguson. Raspadori in the end said no to Roma and he's heading towards Atalanta. There is a chance that Malen, the Dutch striker from Aston Villa, could land in Roma. But I would be a bit surprised with that one because he's playing for Emery. So we will see. The one landing soon for Roma is the French under-20 Robinho Bas from Olympique Marseille. And he has 4 goals and 2 assists in 14 Ligue 1 appearances this season. At the level they showed in the second half, Roma can still dream with the top 4 finish, I think. There is 5 defeats and 3 wins in the last 8 in Serie A for the Granata in this run, which is difficult to read, to be honest, what happens with Torino. Talking about false 9s, Che Adams scored a brace in Coppa Italia playing in that position at the Olimpico. Some are saying that Baroni took the best out of Gasperini. But I think, like Gasperini said as well after Coppa Italia's defeat, that Sunday things could look different than on Tuesday night. That's what my take here, Edu. Roma to win, odds of 2.
Let's see, still no draws for Roma this season, 13 wins and 7 defeats in Serie A, still challenging for the Champions League spots, level on points with Juve and Napoli with 1 game in hand. Then we have Milan Lecce, as you mentioned, back-to-back visits for Lecce to San Siro. Well, Milan to win, 1.29. We should look at better markets here. Leo, SmartBet is suggesting us both teams to score, yes, although Lecce only scored 13 goals this season. Is the lowest tally in Serie A, so I'm not sure also of this top tip from SmartBet.
I won't take that one, but I understand from where does it come from. Cremonese, Pisa, Sassuolo, Genoa, they all scored and they took points from San Siro. So we're gonna we're gonna see which Milan is gonna be playing against Lecce, if the one that dropped points against those four teams that I just mentioned, or the one that corrected a little bit the trajectory against lesser teams with those wins against Cagliari and Verona not so long ago. There is something in Milan's favor, not only the difference in quality, but that Lecce will arrive after playing Napoli and the effort that demands physically and mentally. That's what my take here, Edu. Yes, Asian handicap as well could be a good look on here, but my take is Milan to win combined with goals over 1.5. These two together, odds of 1.66.
And for Monday, we have two games in Cremona, Cremonese, Verona dropping in the table. Cremonese, 6 winless games with only 2 points in those games. Verona, well, we spoke about them before. This is a key game for them against, a team where they can get points from.
Absolutely, Edwin. Look, for Cremonese, at least, even in this run you mentioned, with 4 defeats in the last 6, they still look at the table and they're doing all right. For Verona, it's a crucial game, this one. There's no doubt about, although I almost made my mind with them and Serie B next season. I remember that in the reverse fixture against Juventus, Davide Nicola even was happy to see that 𝐬𝐵 scored in that defeat with Juve, but last match day there was no consolation and no fighting spirit because the game was done after 15 minutes. It was already 2-0 for Juventus, and after 35 minutes it was already 3-0 for Juventus against Cremonese. On Verona, I mentioned early on the game with Bologna. At home they lost 5 of the last 7. On the road is not very different for them, with 1 win all season. But last time away, yes, they almost punished Napoli and finished with a 2-2 draw at the Diego Armando Maradona. My first instinct here, Edu, says that not to expect goals. But if I have this feeling, then, you end up with the game being goals over 3.5 or something like that in this type of 6-pointers. But my take, Edu, I believe it's a game that can open if it opens in the second half. So first half draw is my take for this Cremonese Verona. First half draw, odds of 2.
And the last game in this very long video with a lot of games, Leo, is Lazio. 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐻, a good one. Actually, Lazio got a win finally against Verona thanks to an own goal. They were coming from 4 games without a win. We expected Lazio to be closer to 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐻. Actually, there is a 6 points gap between these two teams before the game 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐻 Milan.
Yes, absolutely. But the second half of the season, I don't know how it is looking like for Lazio. They and again, we need to talk about players leaving because yes, Tati Castellanos gone and actually already scoring for West Ham. Guendouzi, finally, he left. He's going to play for Fenerbahce. Nuno Tavares, left back, is about to move to Benfica for 10 million euros. Between those 3 players, Lazio got 70 million euros already. Brentford is already sent representatives to watch Matteo Cancellieri, and he could leave for around 20 million. Seeing his best teammates departing is no wonder why 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐻 now wants to leave too. Corriere della Sera also reporting that Mancini made a call to Romagnoli, the center back, Alessio Romagnoli, to test his desire of the center back to pack his suitcase for Saudi football. Sarri already said that the target is to add some players now to start building for next summer. So it could be a second half of the season when Lazio, yes, they can win games and probably they will give you a surprise here and there. but difficult to think if the table can look different for them when April comes. The reverse fixture was all 𝐬𝐭𝐴 at the Lake. We will need to see how Fabregas' team finished their game with Milan. Away from home is 3 wins and 2 defeats, Inter and Roma in the last 5 for 𝐬𝐭𝐴, although the last 2 wins away were 2 free nils for them, yes, against Pisa and Lecce, the caveat. 𝐬𝐭𝐴 conceded 13 goals all season. 13 goals all season. Lazio conceded 16, which is 1 better, for example, than Inter. That's why my take here is the goals under market, goals under 2.5, odds of 1.60.
Well, Leo, breathe, drink some water, some mate. We finish our video. Remember, guys, you have the chance to post your tips in Oddspedia. We have tipster competitions going on. You just have to register in Oddspedia and play for free. A chance to win some cash money, and also with rivals where you can create your own tipster competition. Leo, your ACCA was correct last week.
Yes, true.
Good news, good news.
Yes.
Safe bet for this video.
Milan Lecce, goals over 1.5, odds of 1.29.
And your ACCA?
Napoli Sassuolo, goals over 2.5, Juventus to win, Milan to win, plus goals over 1.5. These 3 together, odds of 5.1.
Brilliant, Leo. Thank you. See you next week. Bye-bye.